Good morning, kids. I'm Miss Darlena, and I'm one of the Sunday school teachers at Four Oaks Midtown. This morning, I have been asked to come and tell the story of Easter. But before I do, I just want to tell you how much we miss you and how much we really wish that we could do this in person. Mr. Jack and Miss Lydia say that when you come back, they can't wait to play Mancala with you, and Miss Jana says that she can't wait to hear all the memory verses that you've been memorizing. So, welcome to Sunday School. This is a place where we walk a little slower and we talk a little softer. We walk slower because we're not in a hurry, and we talk a little softer because someone in this room or the room next to us might be talking to or about God, and we don't want to disturb them. This is Easter Sunday, and this is a day that frames everything else that happens in the year. The reason that we worship on Sundays is because Jesus rose from the dead on a Sunday. It's called the Lord's Day, and that's why we gather for worship on Sundays. So on Easter Sunday, more than any other, you may hear somebody say something like, "He is risen." And it is good and right when you hear somebody to say that, to say back to them, "He is risen indeed." So I want you guys to practice this with me. I'm going to say what you see on the screen, that it is not bolded, and I want you to say back to me what you see on the screen that is bolded. All right, you guys ready? Here we go. He is risen. He is risen. All right, one more time. Let's see if I can hear you from your homes. He is risen. He is risen indeed. Welcome to Easter Sunday. Our Bible passage for today is Matthew chapter 28, Mark chapter 16, Luke chapter 24, and John chapter 20. For our lesson today, we decided to go to the Jesus Storybook Bible because it does such a great job of telling the story of what happened on the first Easter Sunday. So this is what happened after Jesus died. And this story is called God's Wonderful Surprise. Jesus' friends were sad. They would never see their best friend again. How could this happen? Wasn't Jesus the rescuer? The king God had promised? It wasn't supposed to end like this. Yes, but whoever said anything about the end? Just before sunrise on the third day, God sent an earthquake and an angel from heaven. When the guards saw the angel, they fell down with fright. The angels rolled a huge stone away, sat on top of it, and waited. At the first glimmer of dawn, Mary Magdalene and the other women headed to the tomb to wash Jesus' body. The early morning sun slanted through the ancient olive trees, drops of dew glittering on leaves and grasses, little tears everywhere. The friends walked quietly along the hilly path through the olive groves until they reached the tomb, and immediately noticed something odd. It was wide open. They peered through the opening into the dark. But wait, Jesus' body was gone. And something else. A shining man was there with clothes made from lightning. "Don't be scared," the angel said, but they couldn't help it. They screamed anyway. The angel asked them, "What are you doing here?" "This is a tomb, and tombs are for dead people." The women couldn't speak. "Jesus isn't dead anymore," he said. "He's alive again." And their hearts leapt, and such gladness that they felt for a moment as if they had woken from a nightmare. The other women rushed home, but Mary stayed behind. How could it be true? Jesus was definitely dead. How could he be alive? Just then Mary heard someone else in the garden. Perhaps it's the gardener, she thought. He'll know where Jesus' body is. "I don't know where Jesus is," Mary said urgently. "I can't find him." But it was all right. Jesus knew where she was, and he had found her. Mary. Only one person said her name like that. She could hear her heart thumping. She turned around. She could make out a single figure. She shaded her eyes to see and thought she was dreaming. But she wasn't dreaming. She was seeing Jesus. Mary fell to the ground. Sudden tears filled her eyes, and great sobs shook her whole body. And all she wanted in that moment was to cling to Jesus and never let him go. "You'll be able to hold on to me later, Mary," Jesus said gently, "and always be close to me. And now, go and tell the others that I am alive." Mary ran and ran all the way to the city. She had never run so fast or so far in all her life. She felt she could run forever. She didn't even feel like her feet touched the ground. The sun seemed to be dancing and gleaming and bounding across the sky, racing and shining brighter than she could ever remember in clear, fresh air. And it seemed to her that morning as she ran, almost as if the whole world had been made anew, almost as if the whole world was singing for joy. The trees, tiny sounds in the grass, the birds, her heart. Was God really making everything sad come untrue? Was he making even death come untrue? She couldn't wait to tell Jesus' friends. "They won't believe it," she laughed. So we know that Jesus came back to life, but there's a reason that he had to die, and that's our Christ connection for today. The crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus is the center of the gospel. Without it, we have no good news. We deserve to die because of our sin, but Jesus died in our place. He was the blood sacrifice made once and for all, for everyone, for the forgiveness of sin. God was pleased with Jesus' sacrifice and raised Jesus from the dead to reign as king over all creation. We are forgiven only through Jesus. And that brings us to our story point for today. Jesus died on the cross and is alive. So if you don't remember anything else from the story today, he did die, but he is alive. And our big idea question for this section is, who saves us from our sin? I bet you all know the answer to this question. Wait for it. Jesus saves us from our sin. No one else, only Jesus. Our key passage for this section is from Romans chapter 10, verse 9. And it says, "Because if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved." Since you don't have your journals, what we're going to do instead is I'm just going to walk you through a simple activity to help you to respond to God's word today. So what you'll need is a blank piece of paper and something to color with, either crayons or colored pencils. I liked colored pencils, so that's what I used for my cross, or markers. Anything that you like to make a cross. It can look any way that you want the cross to look. You can make it as decorative as you want or as plain as you want. But then after you make the cross, ask your parents for a Post-it note. And on that Post-it note, you're going to write the word sin. And here's what I want you to do with the Post-it note. I want you to put it on your chest to remember that we came into this world with sin and that this is my sin. And then once you've done that, take it and put it on the cross that you've made to remind you that Jesus took all of our sin. He put it on the cross and we don't have to carry it anymore. Jesus is the one who saves us from our sin. Thank you. Happy Easter. He is risen. And one last thing, kids, don't forget that we have memory verses for you to learn, even now when you're not with us in person. When you come back, don't forget to stop at the door, tell us your memory verse, and get your star on the chart. So for this week, the memory verse that you should be learning is Mark chapter 8, verse 31. And it says, "And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again." Happy Easter, he is risen.